given our fact hotel room, and I should have checked out already. So I wonder whether they might actually end up, if they're smart, they should really kill the internet for rooms that have already checked out. That's what they should do.
Yeah, I'd kill
But
you.
I don't
That's
think they've
good
done
for
that
you.
yet.
Buddy,
Yeah,
can I say
yeah.
hi to
We
Uncle?
should.
Oh,
How's Harvey?
yeah,
Oh, how you doing, Harves? I missed the Harvester. There
there's
he
Uncle.
is.
Hey.
Guaranteed, guaranteed to be good darts. I think Craig's struggling here because he's kind of phasing in and out, but he's don't know what that story is.
Come on, you can go back to bed now.
Yeah, I think Craig's here now. It's fine. All right, cool. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Craig keeps dropping out. We might have to do that with him today. How can we possibly get sort of do that? Anyway, welcome. Brainfood Live on air, Brainfood on tour, actually. How to hire in Australia 2025 and beyond. Folks, kind of launched this kind of a series, informal series, just to, make sure that I'm speaking to local people and understand what the local recruitment scenario is. We hear a lot about what's happening in recruitment, but you know what? The public discourse is very much dominated by what's happening in the US, very much possibly dominated by what's happening in the UK. And I've been conscious of the fact that actually what we need is to have much more of a polyphonic kind of public discourse, lots of voices from different places. So an excuse for me is when I'm traveling around is to speak to local recruiters who know what they're doing. So today in the hot seat, we've got Lauren Sharp. Yeah, the legendary Lauren Sharp. And in fact, Craig Watson will drop in and drop out probably at some point. They're going to be my co-host and help me. We're going to get some guests on the show as well and talk through what is what. Anyway, Lauren, for the folks who don't know you, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
I am half of TARPod, the talent acquisition podcast. We talk talent down here in Australia and New Zealand. And we're pretty big, I think. We're getting there.
More than pretty big. I think TopPod is probably like one of the top 5 recruitment podcasts globally right now.
We
forget about
do
sort of
get a lot of global stuff, actually. We've got a lot of listeners coming out of around the world. We've got huge Canadian followership there. But what I've really noticed since January, we've got a massive spike coming out of North America. So I don't know what's going on there. I haven't done any research into why. I think I don't need to try and track down some American listeners and go, why are you listening to us? And what's going on over there in regards to that you're tuning into more foreign podcasts around talent acquisition and employment.
Wow, thank you, Lauren. Did anyone hear Lauren go like completely weird there in terms of sound, or was it just me? Because I think it's just me. But I can't even hear Lauren anymore. Actually, before we continue, can we check in the chat whether you can hear and see me and Lauren okay? Let me know in the chat whether that's okay, folks. We are broadcasting this on LinkedIn as well. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, drop me a comment and let me know whether the audio and visual is okay. I think I've got dodgy internet. So it's probably me just not being able to listen to Lauren, which isn't the worst thing in the world, to be honest. We're just gonna have to do some lip reading, but that's all good.
Well, last time I was on your podcast, you dropped out, and I ended up having
you're not muted. I think people can hear you, but I can't hear you at all. So yeah, it's nothing to do with you. It's to do with me. But I don't think we can fix it because
well, my sound is all up
in a dodgy internet zone.
Right.
Okay, let's keep cracking on with this. Let's see sort of whether let's kind of lay the land, so to say. Before we bring our guests on, Lauren, I want to just get your vibe, because you're also a recruiter. I mean, basically, you are not only a podcast host. That's not the only thing you do. You actually run a recruitment business, Sharp People, I believe. Very successful business, and focusing on, I think, SAP. Isn't that the thing that you specialize in? You say it. You run a recruitment business. What is the market looking like for you 2025? How is it going? What's going good? What's going bad?
It's been a little bit topsy-turvy to start with, depending on industry, where it's going good and where it's going bad. We're still running on skill shortages here in Australia, but we're seeing healthcare and aged care are real growing sectors. cybersecurity and AI tech, obviously, but that is definitely a global phenomenon. Renewable energy still got a real kick to it as well when we're looking at solar and wind turbine stuff. The hydrogen stuff's falling by the wayside, and lithium has crashed a little bit as well when you look at that. Uh, Defense and government contracts are a bit wishy-washy at the moment. We just had an election announced this morning for the 3rd of May, I believe. So it's that will, let's see what the government and the opposition are going to do. And they're going to flash money around that they don't have, because we're all feeling the pinch. And I know that the majority of Australians don't want to see that, because that will affect how inflation is going to go if they hit with massive government spend. And they can't afford to do it. They really can't.
Yeah.
We're still recovering from COVID. And I'm in Victoria, even though my business is national, and Victoria is on the verge of bankruptcy. It is absolutely
Right.
screwed down here. And people just don't want to see government splashing money around that they don't have. So that's one
That's
thing that's
right. There's
another
been
thing, insurance
Go
is taking off, really taking off here. Insurance recruitment. I think when you throw in natural disasters and all the stuff that's going on, insurance is really, really taking off. I'm seeing tech is a little bit up and down. A lot more companies are offshoring to Asia and Southeast Asia, with the
on.
Philippines and Malaysia and things. But it's chugging along nicely. Chugging along nicely. Got a few SAP projects for myself in the works that I'm trying to get hold of, and the rest of the team are chugging along nicely.
Yeah, good report. I mean, it's very important to speak to local recruiters. I spoke to another guy on um, the Talent Palooza. Recruitment guy, worked in construction, and he said something actually really interesting to me, which resonated, which was, you know what, in any economy, the top 20% of suppliers are always going to have some business, because recruitment, jobs are all for me is that the rest of the 80% of the market may suffer, because the rising tide is not like lifting all boats. It's actually maybe a diminishing tide, and that's leaving a few people high and dry. We like to talk about I think it's important to take the overall perspective, but also to level off and understand that within any market there's going to be recruitment opportunities.
Mm,
Interesting to know about the election. This is perfectly timed for this show.
mm.
How does the election work for the viewers who don't sort of not in Australia and are kind of interested?
Oh,
I think
okay.
Australia has quite a well managed sort of election process, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
we
like
do.
deadline.
They're on
It's
the
only like
Westminster.
very short and you're in and out. So
Yeah, they've had to have this election by the 17th of May. That was the cutoff date, and they have to allow a certain amount of time leading up for the election for all candidates to be able to effectively run their campaign. Now, the 3rd of May is the calling, so that'll be the old democracy sausage at the barbecue at the primary school everyone goes off and gets on a Saturday morning. But it's also, we run the Westminster system the same as the UK. We Any Americans listening here, you guys are very heavily gerrymandered, where we are not. We have an independent electoral commission here that has gerrymandering. It's all based on population. They don't give two shits who you vote for, because you're not allowed to ask what party you follow on a registration form. They don't care what color you are, what your ethnic background is. They don't give a hoot. It's all about population, and that's how our electoral boundaries are distributed. So it is a very fair system. They have a maximum number of people in the electorate. So as we grow as a country, we get more electorates come along, which hence more representation for population in Parliament. So it's
mm,
quite a very effective system, very useful system, and it really doesn't discriminate in a sense when it comes to people casting their vote, because we'll open up our mailing votes. Pre-mail votes will probably open in about, I'd say, a week to 2 weeks. You'll be able to register for a mail-out vote, and they'll go along to all the homes and everything where people cannot physically get to a voting station.
yeah, yeah, fantastic. And the most attractive thing for me is that there is a time limit. Like the date is set, it's going to be done and dusted, so that everyone knows, and you don't have like a year-long campaign where everything's up in the air. So from a business perspective, basically it means what the story is going to be in the next 4 years in 4 weeks or whatever it is. When is the deadline again? Remind me, Lauren. When is the election date?
the 3rd of May. The thing that I'm
Third May.
finding with
Yeah.
this is I'm a swing voter. The older I've got, I want data from both sides. I want to know where they're getting these policy numbers from and where they're getting this spend from. I'm very heavy into that, where you've got one saying we've got an overinflated public service and we're going to cut numbers, cut numbers. But then the other one's going, well, we've just eliminated a whole heap of contractors. So we've brought it all in house. So we're actually saving money. So show me the data you're saving money. And the other one, is this just false economics by moving it to a different P&L and pushing it out to consulting? So
Yeah,
there's
that's
things
typically what
like
happens. Yeah, yeah,
I want people
yeah.
to ask those
Governments typically do this. Sorry, Lauren. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Basically, you've got, governments always say we're going to cut, public spending and all this type of stuff, but oftentimes that just means shoving sort of people from government payroll onto consultancy contracts and then still paying them more, and the same people doing the same job in the same place. So it's not saving any money per se.
questions.
What you're doing is just shuffling the numbers and being able to say to your electorate, you have done X. So yeah, we've got to be careful of that and monitor it. But anyway, the good to know for the Aussies that for Aussie businesses that we're going to have a resolution in a short frame of time. So that's very, very positive. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing, Lauren. What are you seeing in terms of business development? Let's deal with that
It's
firstly. Like, what's that looking like?
it's tough out there getting new business through the door because we're a small agency. We're not big. And I've got no desire to create a massive empire of an agency. I'm happy doing my lifestyle. I'm happy with everything. But what I am seeing that the BD is hard. It's very much around your reputation and relationship driven right now. And there's a lot more government work coming. So I'm very lucky to have landed some of those contracts recently for myself. Some people are really struggling, the small solopreneurs who have gone out in the boom times a few years ago, they're really struggling, especially if they don't have a contractor base at the moment. I'm seeing a move away from permanent hiring at the moment because of the global volatility on the economic market at the moment. So they're going that contingent route, even though it's usually a bit more exy, because of the fact that it's easier to turn them out if they have to on a dime.
I think we're seeing that everywhere, aren't we, folks? Basically, employers, it's kind of quote unquote in this type of market where it's kind of normal in the sense that when there's no confidence in the investment, you're not going to put it on payroll. You're going to do fixed term contract. You're going to do contractor, even though it costs you more per hour. You just need to be able to move people off payroll or basically reduce your cost more efficiently and more quickly. That's no good for permanent markets. I think for if you're like only doing perm, I think it's going to be a continual struggle, and it's going to be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also finding a lot more clients out there are wanting to ask the percentage margins on contractors as well, because they've got to keep an eye on that. And a lot more are trying to go fixed term contract as well. So those types of things are coming in. But it's a very difficult market at the moment, but it's not impossible. It's just a matter of putting in the hard yards. But candidate wise, I'm finding that the candidates they're really sticking to where they are. They don't want to be changing so it's a real headhunt market. It's not a throw an ad out and hope. It's a real sourcing effort because they're really risk averse to jumping in the volatile economics. They don't want to take that risk of starting a new role and it not being the right place. Is the grass really greener on the other side? I think that's one of the things that you've really got to look at, really. And if you're taking away the hybrid work model or the work from home for some of these people as well, that's a massive effect on what's going out there. Because I'm a firm believer in hybrid, love it, works for me brilliantly personally, and I love it as a concept out there. We've got more women in the market now working full time and having careers because they've got hybrid work. That is
Yeah, I
fixing our
hear
gender.
you. I hear you, Lauren.
Yeah,
I
you
think
guys
it's also clear, like candidate behavior. People are obviously if you're in a solid job and people aren't moving, it's going to be, very, very, very defensive when it comes to these opportunities. You've got to work harder to present a positive opportunity. And that's for the elite talent that kind of stuck in there. But then the candidates that are on the open market, of course, they're hyperactive, very active, applying to loads of jobs and kind of confusing the market a little bit from when you're advertising for jobs, because you're going to get a lot of stuff coming in. Okay, we've brought some friends on to join us. Let's do some quick intros. Firstly, let's say hello to Adrian. Adrian, great to see you. Wonderful to have you on the show. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, Adrian? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure, sounds good. Good to see you again, Hung, and Lauren and Ross. Good to meet both of you. So I am, I guess, a CEO of Lead Group Consultancy, or Lead Group Holdings, essentially, which owns Lead Group Consultancy, which is a business across four sectors in Gold Coast and Sydney, as well as the Outsource People, which is an outsourced BPO company in the Philippines that supports local recruitment companies, as well as a company called Fedora, which is essentially a two-sided video platform within the recruitment industry as well. So that is me.
Fantastic to have you on the show, Adrian.
Here I
Yeah,
am.
absolutely. Great to have you on the show. Been a long time, sort of, I said I wanted to do this, and
Yeah.
great to get your input. We also have Ross Clennett here. Most of you probably know Ross already. Really, smart commentator on the Aussie market. Great blogger as well. Make sure you follow Ross's blog. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, Ross? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure, Hung. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Ross Clennett's my name. I was an agency recruiter for 14 years, but I've been a self-employed coach and trainer for the last 22 years. And yes, you rightly say, most people know me because of my blog. This is year 18 of my blog. I've been punching out a weekly blog about the recruitment markets and recruitment and leadership since September 2007. And I'm coming to you from my home office on the Mornington Peninsula. I'm also a podcaster. Myself and Adele Last have a weekly podcast out every Tuesday morning. Recruitment News Australia, 10 minutes of news, 10 minutes a question of the week.
Fantastic stuff. Ross, please feel free to share your links to your podcast and what have you in the chat stream there. Make sure people follow it.
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about Adrian. Your business is sectorally focused, right? Is that correct? I mean, I'm not sure whether that's correct. From the last time we spoke, it might have been a year plus ago. So
You're right. A lot of people think it from an external perspective, it probably looks like we're all over the place. But we've picked four subsectors that at any one time, based on the marketplace, not all of them are going to fall simultaneously, which we sit in healthcare space, construction space, manufacturing space, and professional services. Oh, and Hung's gone. Or on my side.
I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Hey. Hi, Ross. It's been a while, my friend.
Boring, man. Jesus.
All right. So now that we've kicked Hung out and it's the Lauren and Ross podcast, oh, damn it.
Continue, Lauren, continue.
Jesus, yeah. I haven't even started and I'm boring you, man.
You're better than me. You guys are better than me at this, so you continue.
Yeah, cheers. No, so yeah, what I was saying, Hung, is four subsectors, essentially healthcare, manufacturing, construction, and professional services. Across, we're now in Ireland as well, so we're pushing hard. But ultimately, look, we're trying to build the best support system for the best recruiters in the world. Is our BHAG 20-year goal, and because of that, no, our goal isn't to just bleed out one subsector and win that space, but rather, we went big on our long-term vision.
Fantastic. Can you give us some commentary in terms of those particular sectors? Like, what are you seeing compared to last year? Are you seeing, any differences in how clients are behaving, candidates are behaving in healthcare, construction, and so on?
Yeah, like you said, it is different per sector. I think as a whole, this quarter has had a small uptick in just behaviors as far as client behaviors and job flow essentially is a little bit better. But also, I think what you said, 20% of people start winning in markets like this. I think also the last couple of, probably a lot of good consultants, the last 6 months have kind of rejigged their plan, realized they have to open up their top of funnel and focus on BD more, get those behaviors back. And that's been happening. And so, actually, Lauren said earlier, the behaviors of clients are going to be relationship based now. And so we're focused on share of wallet. We're focused on opening up top of funnel to, one desk that had this specialization is now, hey, let's do these two specializations. And that takes about 6 months to really change a desk and shift those networks. And then, yeah, focused on share of wallet of your clients that you did have that maybe aren't giving out as much.
Yeah, really interesting. I love the term share of wallet as well. Like we have, the concept of the client has a budget. They're not, it's obviously been constrained. What can you do to compete for the money that they do have? How is that? When you mentioned BD's obviously been a focus. I think that's the last 2-3 years or so.
Sure.
What are the techniques that are seeming to work for the better performing consultants out there, and what are the techniques that are kind of declining in terms of effectiveness? Obviously, relationship is number one. Tell us a little bit more about sort of how that works, and what, let's say, a new person coming in that doesn't have those relationships. Are they finished? Like, how do they actually get there?
How do we do it? Yeah, I think we've opened, like I said, you definitely have to open up top of funnel to create the initial conversations, and that's what BD is,
Hmm.
right? Have an opportunity to plead your case, pitch your value proposition, and start building trust, right? So if you look at that shift over the last 9 months, 9 months ago, we had a top of funnel or a standard productivity or speech productivity plan of 1,000 contacts on a desk. So we would map 1,000 contacts. We would have that laid out. Now that's 2,000. So we have certainly had to open that up and double the size of the top of the funnel of each desk across the company. So I think more is great. But then in saying that, everybody's getting way more contact. Everybody's getting BD, hit nonstop, because not only there's been this massive shift over the last 9 months where BD is starting to win again, or is starting to be a necessity essentially, but also you've got AI and automation that quadruples that output. So there's just so much noise out there that winners are going back to old school stuff, right? Like I laughed the other day that two guys, I should say newcomers to the industry, they're 5 or 6 years experience, but they're like, oh man, I hear them back and forth. Yeah, I can't get this guy's number. I've tried this and tried this and tried this, and they just named different programs nonstop to try to get this number. I was like, have you just called the front desk and asked for them, and then asked the mobile? Like, that's the old school shit, guys, right? Like it's funny, but that stuff is now different. Like making phone calls. I put a post the other day that in an average day, I think I counted it that week, but in an average week, I'll get 100 emails, BD emails to me. I'll get maybe 50 on LinkedIn as far as just, whatever email pitching, whatever. I get one call a week. I literally get one BD call a week, and then all this crap, right? And you know what? I give that one call time every single time. Usually to decide are they going to be a good recruiter one day, and maybe I should build a relationship with them because they pick up the phone. But it's crazy. So it's almost come full circle to when I started 15 years ago, where arguably it's more impactful because you're different. And I think that's
I agree with you 100% here. I'm cracking on with the few stuff I've got and going, oh, have you spoken to, I email? No, pick up the fucking phone.
Yeah.
Oh, text them. No, pick up the fucking phone, call them, and leave them a message. That's it. I want you to go old school, people. Stop sending emails. Pick up the fucking phone. It's that simple.
All right. That's enough. That's enough profanity for one day. Possibly we've breached a number of T's and C's here, but that's totally fine. But it's interesting that we're going retrograde. Like it's like a lot of recruiters are saying, "Oh, we have to go back to in-person interview because we can't trust the Zoom calls anymore. We can't trust what's happening, asynchronous video. Like we have to see them." So I wonder whether AI, kind of in a really weird way, is going to kind of put us all the way back to analog recruiting, where it's relationships, it's phone calls, it's in-person interviews, all that type of stuff, because actually we can't trust anything digitally anymore. And we've actually stopped paying attention to it. How many emails are you ignoring in your inbox? I guarantee you're ignoring more emails in 2025 than you were ignoring in 2024. And you were ignoring more in 2024 than you were in 2023. So that's just going to keep going. So the era of email BD maybe come to a close. It's going to come to a point where we can't actually look at the inbox anymore because it's getting flooded with drip marketing campaigns, even hyper personalization sort of stuff, it's going to be increasingly difficult. So maybe there's another way. Okay, really interesting. I was about to ask Ross, but he's walked away. But that's okay. He's returned. What is he? What is this here? He's going to put on a tune?
No. It's like everything old is new again. Like my kids, I've got a 25-year-old and 23-year-old. They love vinyl, and yet, something like this is $70 or whatever it is. And back in the day when I bought vinyl, it was like $9, and then vinyl went completely out of fashion, and now it's like the fastest growing category of recorded music in the US at the moment. So to me, it's like a perfect metaphor for the things you were talking about, Lauren and Adrian. It's about old school's coming back because everyone's so overwhelmed with tech, they're just ignoring it all.
Okay, so getting a number though, that's no mean feat. Making a cold call is great, and I totally get what you're saying, Adrian. You hit the reception, see we can get through there. However, that's we can imagine barriers being put into place there. We all know the value of a personal email, a direct number, a personal mobile. How do we acquire that information? I mean, are people even giving that stuff out anymore? Is there a technique that seems to work, or is it just like you got to just meet people and get a WhatsApp and really do those hard yards and build up those networks personally?
Oh, do you know what? You need to ask the consultants all the different tech they use to acquire these mobiles. But yeah, you always get these calls. When you call, people say, "How did you get my number?" And you're like, "Are you kidding me? There's like 17 ways of getting your number now." And they kind of rinse through those, and then, hey, last resort is what I laughed about. I was like, "And this is the only way we could get it when I started." But yeah, all different, like Lusha, and then Lusha was kind of the innovator, and then there's so many copycats now that we basically have accounts everywhere, so that we kind of bleed through the list to decide before getting it. But you can probably get pulled 95% of mobiles out there.
I also find that
so many people base or LinkedIn to pull numbers from there as candidates and shifting that to client base. You can get them now. Is that me or
have we lost Lauren?
Oh, no,
I think Lauren's about to say something, but the internet actually interceded, which we have to thank the gods for that. We Lauren, are you back? You want to say something? No, she's not. That's cool. Okay.
I must.
No, okay. You're back. I think you're about to say something before the internet gods probably preemptively decided to mute you. But I think you're back now. So would you like to say what you're about to say?
It's even simple ways of like little things like people's phone numbers. Most of them are on their LinkedIn pages, and people just don't click enough little 3-dot things to find them. And it's like, I can't find it on Lusha. Okay, did you look on LinkedIn? Oh no. Please, just look. It's not rocket science some days.
Yeah,
Have I frozen again?
So it is funny though. Like the conundrum there is like, today there's no better time to be able to just get any mobile at your fingertips, which means data. There was this time of, hey, acquiring data was so valuable, and now data is so cheap because it's so easy. Like, you think about non-compete, people pulling confidential information. Well, information is, 2 weeks of rebuilding and organizing, and you're done again. So there's no better time to get a mobile number, but then I get one BD call a week because we've never had a generation that's so scared to talk to people and build a relationship. That's the cool part, or the opportunity, I think, because you can think that parallels to every activity within the recruitment landscape. Because it's relationship building. And so if you can kind of rise above that, that's the opportunity for everybody.
What about sort of retention of customers? So this is another aspect that's really worth thinking about, because we can generally accept that the overall hiring demand is obviously going to be suppressed. You guys have got an election coming up soon as well, so obviously the next couple of weeks at least it's going to be pretty much holding fire. Very important for recruitment agencies to have pay attention to the companies that have paid you money before in the past, and make sure that you're still providing value, even though they're not chucking like vacancies at you. You know, the glory days was okay, they sending you stuff and you're working on them, but what other things can you do to make sure that you're continuing to provide value for them? And in fact, can you even monetize some of that stuff? So some of the most sort of the cleverer agencies I've seen have been able to not only provide value for quote unquote dormant customers, but also even monetize some of their work that isn't necessarily about placing candidates or placing clients. Ross, go to you on this. What's your thoughts on this? Is it worth doing? Because it is a lot of extra work, excuse me, for a company that may not be, you know, chucking out loads of requirements. They may have told you, actually, we're not recruiting right now. What's your approach to that? Is it worth building sort of some sort of additional support services to provide to that organization?
You mean outside direct recruitment services?
Correct, yes.
Gee, I'm not a fan of things that you're sort of doing because the market's just in a little bit of a hole. I've seen far too many recruitment agency owners start HR consulting arms and such things because, oh, you know, I interviewed a really good person, or I think the market's going in that area. They don't have any particular expertise in that market. They don't really have any long-term commitment. They just see it as something to do in the short term. I'm absolutely not a fan of that. I think it's definitely better to stick to your niche and continue to build the relationships in the market that you've established yourself in, because the reality is not a lot of people keep at it. Like one or two calls, oh, I can't get through that person, and they just move on. And it's the old persistence, second, third, fourth time. And I mean, I got a first-hand view of this. My wife was formerly the HRD of Hallmark Cards in Australia, and so she used to get a lot of calls from recruiters. And as an ex-agency recruiter herself of 10 years, her philosophy was she basically never meet someone first time they called, and probably not the second time, and she'd wait for the third time to see were they serious. And the amount of people who got through to the third time was like you could count on one hand every year, because people were just so addicted to the short-term hit of, oh, I can speak to the person, I can book a meeting, oh, I can't, and they just move on. And I think that unfortunately has been a real problem in our industry, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, really, really
Do you
interesting.
think, though, Ross, that that's got to do with when we were in that time a few years ago, that agencies were just hiring people to get through all the roles that were coming in, and they were just being handed. And now they've got all these people in there who are just not experienced at BD. They're not really experienced at what they need to do and know where to go with that. And it possibly may not be the career that they stick with.
Oh, there's an element of that, Lauren, but I think if you look at the last 2 years and how difficult it's been for our industry, a lot of those people who don't have what it takes have gone. And so the people that have remained are generally the ones that are more resilient. But I think one of the issues flying under the radar that you've already mentioned is that you've got people coming into the industry at 22, 23, 24, 25, and they're just not used to building relationships with adults. Because, I mean, I know I'm pretty old, but I learned to build relationship with adults because in my household, there was one TV, and when people came over, you kind of talked to all the adults. Like you couldn't go off into your room and watch TV, or, you know, mobile phones were a couple of decades away. So it's like I think all of those old school skills that us, you know, long in the tooth recruiters took for granted. I just think those are the things that people in their 20s, by and large, haven't built great skills in. And so therefore, when they come into agency recruitment, it's not just the sales aspect, but it's building relationships with adults.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, firstly, we are multi-screen now, so even if you are in the same room, no one's actually looking at the same screen. We're all looking at our phones, so that actually has an impact in your relationship building because we're no longer sharing the same digital information, or at least not at the same time. So obviously, you know, the common conversations that you can have are going to be constrained. It does concern me because and again, I don't want to be sort of on screen with a bunch of oldies here and say, oh, all these kids are going to be in desperate shape. However, there's a generation going up that's digital first, digital only, that probably hasn't trained themselves in these types of skills. So is that going to be a problem for them? Is our business going to change enough for them to be successful in business, or is there going to be a moat? So in other words, is it going to be very difficult for younger people to come in and succeed in recruiting, given the fact that they're kind of starting like 100 yards back because they've got to really rebuild those skills from zero, and that's not easy to do. Let's welcome Katie Osborne here. Katie, sorry I didn't bring you on earlier. I actually invited the wrong Katie. So there's another Katie here that's received an alarming invite to join screen. You are welcome to join, by the way. Anybody's welcome to pile in. But I was wondering where you were. But Katie, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you? What is you do?
All good, Hung. I wasn't ignoring you, I promise. So I have been recruiting scarily, not even as long as Ross has been podcasting. I've been agency side recruiter for 17 or so years now, the last 10 of which has been purely focused on the tech market in Australia. And at the beginning of this year, I co-founded a firm called Sentient Search. So we're focused on senior level hiring in technology.
Yeah, really good. Let's start with there. Technology was hot to trot for a long time. It was the place to recruit. That's where, all recruiters are making the most money. Tons of people spending. It looks like it's a tech recession globally right now. I'm speaking to a lot of developers that are struggling to get jobs. That's like unbelievable to think about. Even like 2 years or so ago. What are you seeing, Katie, in that market?
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, we had probably a 2-year boom, 2021, 2022, and then the arse fell out of it. Basically, anyone that says that the last 12 to 18 months has been difficult is lying. So no, it's been tough. Companies came after the back of COVID looking to maximize advantage through digital first engagement with customers. That whole remote working, they had to invest in technology from that standpoint. Talent got really scarce and it got really expensive. And I think we felt that in the pullback in the last kind of 18 months. But I'm looking at this year as a year of stability, or at least that's what I'm praying to the recruitment gods for. I feel as though there is a little bit more of an appetite from people to reinvest now. Companies are going to need to. I mean, even if we look at the last 3 to 6 months of AI, right, I think that's completely turned the tables in terms of what companies have in front of them in terms of opportunities for tech. So yeah, I'm hopeful for this year.
Great stuff. Thank you, Katie. I mean, I think that's probably a confirmation of what we all kind of already know. I mean, anybody who's working in tech would kind of be sensitive to the fact that, yeah, it's been really tough. Has it been sort of a situation where you're able to like really build a good candidate database here now? So in other words, are developers happy to speak to recruiters and, have those conversations in order to, hedge their bets going forward? Or are they still like difficult to speak to, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably not too dissimilar to any other industry where it's a tale of two halves. There's candidates out there that are happy to speak to us, and then there's always that 5% that you're really going to struggle to get onto. And ironically, they're probably the ones that you're going to want to speak to. But I think they are more prepared to now. I think that there is an awareness that there are a lot of jobs that just do not make the public market, and I think understanding that and working the network, devs are now better networked than most people in sales roles, ironically. So yeah, I think it's not too difficult to get onto people. If they're in good jobs, though, it is difficult to pull them out of those.
Yeah, absolutely. The reticence to move, I think that's generally going to be the case in most places. Looking again sectorally, Adrian, diving into things like construction, for instance, that's always been like historically a booming market. Obviously, loads of things happening there. Is that still the case happening in Australia? I know there's like a big event happening. For instance, I think Brisbane are doing the Olympics or something, aren't they? I'm assuming that's going to draw in a lot of like construction talent. It has to, right? I mean, is there any action there? And what is that? How is that affecting the market for you?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like that's all the way to 2032. There's so much civil infrastructure going on between essentially Brisbane Airport, Gold Coast Airport, and so that's all happening. And if you know the like 7 year construction cycle or commercial cycle, you're 1 year civil, 2 years commercial, 4 years resi is kind of how that cycle goes. Um, so it's always, one part of construction is always going to some extent. But if you see civil is the trigger, right? So that year, if there's a civil boom, it's going to be good for 7 years, essentially. So that civil infrastructure is insane in that area. So it's going really well. This quarter, um, I think it's due to so the last 2 quarters have been quite slow in construction, and that's just confidence, right? Builders don't want to start jobs, and that trickles through the whole industry, and that's commercial and resi. This quarter, there's been a lot, and we have a number of desks in kind of the lead project development stuff, project managers, roles like that are kind of the lead of the whole industry. So if people are hiring those, it means new jobs are getting signed off. And this quarter has been massive. Like our construction desks are, yeah, I mean, they're 3 or 4 of them would be 3 of our $1 million billers in the office. So they're booming right now, and they were not the last 2 quarters. So it's certainly starting to come. I don't know what next quarter looks like, but usually, like I said, due to that cycle, it's going to be fairly consistent. And that's just showing their confidence that they're willing to invest. And the banks are willing to invest, probably more importantly.
Mm. So it's basically, again, we talk about the market, quote unquote. But our friend Greg Savage is, hello Greg, by the way, invited onto the show, but he's in, I think he's in UK, so I can't even do it. But he often talks about, listen, it's not one market, it's actually multiple markets, because different sectors, different regions, different sort of contract perm, they're all different. They cycle differently and often in counter to what's going in other places. So we need to be much more granular when we discuss these things and not be overly kind of generalized when we're talking about the overall state. Okay, time to fill, time to hire. I reckon that's gone slowing down. Here's my assumption. Because of candidates being more reluctant and require more persuasion to move, that tells me that actually you might start a job, but the time to place it is actually going to be much further down the pipe than perhaps you used to, and that obviously has impact in terms of your billings and so on. Is that true? Yes, no? What do you think, guys?
I think, like you just said, it depends. In my experience, depends on the desk and how transactional it is and how non-transactional. Obviously, it depends on temp and perm. But if we look solely perm, which is kind of more what we're targeting, I think it probably does take a little longer, and that's due to candidates now are driven by purpose a lot more than, and that's what they care about, and that's what we've been talking about. Noise, right? There's so much noise, which it makes everything out there gray and vanilla and average, and so everybody's looking for something different. And I think different takes time to navigate and decide, is this right? It's not a, hey, this is 10K more, so I'm going to take it, but rather, is this entire environment better for me to make this shift? So I think because of that behavior and the new generation coming in, I think that's probably slowing it down. Like I certainly see our time to fill has slowed down, like holistically on the whole company, for sure it has in perm. And I would say that's probably the reason.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dross.
I mean, I think there's two very big factors. Given all the significant downsizing at the top end of town, people are very wary about big name companies, whereas traditionally people have preferred to be in those companies. There have been some sort of highlight for their resume. I just don't think it's quite the same attraction. And I think the other thing is flexible work. Like that's the non-remuneration aspect that many candidates, having had a taste for, don't want to give up, and they are prepared to move or decline a job if there's greater demands for in the office versus work from home. And certainly it was interesting in terms of the federal election campaign that the opposition leader said that he wanted all the federal public servants back in the office, and then there was leaking by his own party, basically people or members of the party backgrounding journalists to say, no, we don't think that's a good thing, because they know it's an electoral loser to be saying to federal public servants, you've got to be back in the office. And the government then, of course, got on the front foot and said, we're very happy with the current arrangements. It's up to each department to offer what they think is appropriate and to manage that. And I think that shows that what's going on in the US hasn't really affected Australia to the extent that the headlines might suggest. I think Australian employers know that the best talent prefers to have a flexible approach to work, and they're reluctant to upset the apple cart there and cause a wholesale departure of some of their best people who value that flexibility.
To add to that, though, Ross, also, as I mentioned earlier, with more women in the workforce, with their careers taking off and reducing that gender pay gap, by pulling that back to that in-office thing, that they're going to lose the female vote. And the Liberal Party lost that vote last election because they had a bit of a misogynist leader at the time, made a few stupid statements, and they lost power and women just walked. So the women will again walk from voting for that party if they're going to reduce this and take away those options. They just walked. They lost 15 seats, which is huge in a small country like Australia.
Well, I noticed that the opposition leader backpedaled about 3 or 4 days later, basically saying, oh, no, I wasn't saying everyone's got to come back to the office in the public service. I was just saying that the arrangements should go back to what occurred pre-COVID. So very clearly he got the message that in terms of focus groups, 5 days back in the office was not a vote winner.
No, not at all.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's have a look at, I mean, obviously the election's happening. We can't really know what's happening sort of in terms of policies and stuff. Let's leave that to one side for now. But very interesting that there is kind of, cultural commentary, let's say, from different political parties that do have an impact in terms of sort of what employers might be looking to recruit. So, for instance, the return to home is one example of this. Maybe there's you can kind of guess there's probably going to be an anti-DEI type of approach if the Liberals come in, I guess. That again affects sort of how companies will moderate their requirements. So I guess the point I'm making is probably all this means is stasis until we get a resolution and a confirmation as to what's happening in terms of government. Okay, let's talk about AI. We do need to talk about it. I think agencies have been even ahead of internal recruiters in terms of adopting new technologies, particularly when it comes down to lead generation and BD type of stuff. I'm interested to know what your thoughts are as business owners, how you're thinking about AI in terms of streamlining your operations. What do you think it's going to look like going forward? How do you see AI making the biggest impact for a recruitment agency in terms of bottom line? Any thoughts on this?
You guys want me to start?
Go for it.
Cool. Happy to. It does tie. So I think recruitment based, it ties to what I've been talking about, where like all we're focused on is interpersonal skills internally. It's tied. Actually, it's quite nice because right now, super mainstream, even before implementation of AI is still, on the first movers kind of thing, right? People trial and error and digging around with it. Outsourcing is kind of hit mainstream and all the followers are jumping on that. It's actually a really nice, I guess, caveat or entry into AI, because the reality is what hiring autonomous workforce in the Philippines actually forces people to build processes in front of their behaviors, right? To drive at top of funnel stuff. And that is so easy to then translate once you have those processes built to translate into automation, into AI, into that different world that we're trialing, right? There's so many options though, that I think so I KPI myself on trialing a new AI in the industry every 2 weeks and just trial it. And I think the key with AI is not adopting all the AI that works in the recruitment industry, but understanding your unique value proposition and your strategy and saying what AI works into that strategy. And then you're building a bigger moat, or a competitive edge to your competition. If you just chucking stuff in, one, you're never going to implement it effectively unless your change management internally is incredible. But also, you're just going to be constantly changing and trialing new stuff, because for the next 2 years, everybody's in a race, right? So I kind of sit back, let it bubble. We have a development team internally, so we're building our own custom automation and AI in our business, and I'm trialing that to say, hey, what could we build and how can we tweak it to make sure it's exactly what our competitive runway looks like. I think that's the key. And then that ties solely to, hey, phone time, right? If you can use AI, use outsourcing, use automation to get, of the 38-hour working days, 36 hours your person is influencing, you're going to win, right? Like that's what I was talking about before. The phone time behaviors are what wins. And if we look at, we're average, it's dropped, but we were at 900 GP to FTE. We've dropped back to kind of 800. But if you look at that variation of our billers in-house, every big biller, it's associated to phone time. It just all is. And that's way more noticeable now than it was 2 years ago in the boom. In the boom, sure, you didn't have to build relationships. You didn't have to win. You just had to throw the right person at the right person, and shit happened, right? Oh, no more swearing. Lauren was way worse. F-bombs are worse. I won't even start.
I said enough F-bombs for everyone.
But so I think that's the key, right? Is AI is going to create a lot of noise on what to use, but also AI and automation and outsourcing all make more people accessible at any one time, all the time. And so the big billers are ones that, yes, leverage that to make a big top of funnel, but still have the same size bottom. So they leverage it to not get more candidates and reach out to more people, but actually say, anybody can have 100 to 250 immediate relationships in their network, right? So use that to make your network more higher quality, not to dilute your network and make it 1,000 people, which unfortunately the new generation is doing. And that's what I noticed the big billers change or do differently. They say no a lot more versus the less billers or lesser billers are saying yes to everything because it's just so exciting, because they have leads on both sides all the time now because of AI and automation.
Yeah, really, really well put, Adrian. Using artificial intelligence to basically increase the influencing time that individual recruiters have, and then making sure that influence is actually concentrated in the 150, 200 key relationships that are going to make the difference. I think that's a really interesting, a very succinct, kind of an understandable way to succeed in recruiting. Katie, what are your thoughts on this? Katie and Lauren, both of you, because you're kind of operating, recruitment agencies. I think AI has a kind of a really powerful offer for someone who is, operating kind of as a solo. I work by myself, so it's like, okay, great. This could be a massive scaling opportunity for me, because suddenly I can do a lot more than I could do before. Have you been able to do this, or is it kind of one of the things that you're struggling to adopt it simply because you're already maxed out? Again, I'm describing my own behavior right now, because I think, yes, I could totally use AI for this, but I find myself at 110% all the time, and I can't find the bandwidth to actually do the experimentation. What's your experience on that, and can you give us any tips to get more productive?
I think there's different levels to it. You don't have to look very hard to find a good recruiter that's typically terrible at data entry or administration. So if we can automate anything, we will do. And I think automation has been within our industry for a reasonably long time. When we start looking at AI, it's the agentic stuff that really, I think, carries quite a lot of power in what we're doing. But bringing it back to what you were saying before, Hung, is the more noise that you're putting out there and the more accustomed people are to, or the more distrust they have with the type of information that they're consuming, if everyone's doing it, is it a competitive advantage? So I don't know. Maybe that's the old school in me. I would like to think there's always going to be room for a human recruiter, but no. We've looked at automation. You cannot get an ATS or a CRM system that doesn't have some form of AI built into it. The market that we're operating in within technology, I don't know how much value it's going to have for us on the candidate sourcing side. I think, that's for our clients to exploit and maximize. And I don't know that they would come to us to try and get the quick wins on the candidates. So I think we're still going to have to go the long way round on that. But I'm excited for the agentic piece and slightly scared.
I'm with you on that one. Slightly scared as well. I'm starting to use it more now in regards to automating the little tasks and those types of things that I don't have time for. But I'm in a very similar boat to you, Hung, where I don't have enough hours in a day to actually probably go and implement something properly, as we are a very, very small team. So I'm sort of having to go back to working 6 days a week, 6.5 days a week, to try and do this stuff on weekends. Which I was trying to avoid, because after the years of COVID where we're all stuck at home, I was working 6 days a week because I had nothing else to do, and I hit burnout so badly, and that was awful for 6 months. I felt I couldn't do anything for 6 months almost, because I was just constantly tired. But it's one of those things I have to just do it on the weekends now, and I'm trying to play around with agents at the moment to sort of start automating other tasks in regards to Tarpod and some of the other things I do, because as much as excuse me, I've got a cold someone gave me, and yeah, it was you. And what I'm finding is that, because I work really more on the TA side with the talent acquisition professionals with the podcast, and my agency is my income, because you don't make millions out of podcasting, unfortunately. Ross can attest to that, and so can Hung. And so I talked to a lot more TA people on how they're doing it and how they're automating some of the tasks, the sourcing, making sure they've got the right prompts, and they're moving those things as well. Adrian, have you got a cold caught by Hung as well?
It wasn't by him. I haven't seen him since he's been in Australia. So no, I'm good. But I do have a cold. Yeah, I
usually. Oh my goodness! Me and Adrian were scheduled to meet up in Sydney, and we didn't do it. But obviously, the calendar itself basically transmitted some illness to you, Adrian. I do beg your pardon. Okay, cool. Ross, what's your view on AI and recruitment agencies in general? Give us a kind of a long form view as to how this changes recruitment agencies, if it does indeed do that.
Well, to Adrian's point, I think one of the big differences will be the differential between the average annual billing performance from a consultant inside an agency that's not really utilizing AI versus those that are. So if you think pre-generative AI, and I'll just sort of make up these figures, the average recruiter in an average agency might have been billing 300, and then in an equivalent top performing agency, the average might be 450. Whereas what I'm already seeing now is that, okay, the average agency recruiter in the average agency is 300, but in those agencies that are utilizing Gen AI effectively, it'll go to 750 or 800. Like, it'll be this massive differential as a multiplier compared to the average. And I've got absolutely no doubt that is going to be a huge differential. And what you'll see is these big agencies that have got these legacy business models struggling to execute generative AI in a way that makes a productivity difference at the desk level. And those recruiters in those businesses that can see the opportunity in Gen AI and see how it's being squandered or slow marched inside their own employer will go, stuff this, I'm going to go out and do my own thing. And certainly it seems like in the last 8, 9, 10, 12 months, just a massive increase in the number of people going out on their own in terms of agency recruiters. And although that wouldn't be the key reason, I suspect it would be a substantial reason why that's happening.
Yeah, really interesting. I think there is a bit of a race to implement, isn't there? Because everyone can see that it's going to make a difference. I think you're right. different levels of company are going to operate differently. I've seen some great experimentation at the very large level of staffing agencies where they've partnered up with a big sort of organization that's basically doing all of the automation throughout their entire sort of process. And then you've got those micro agencies that need to sort of gerrymander it, sort of jerry rig it, should I say, with different tools that they're taking from the consumer grade. And then on the middle piece, you've got probably stuff that's deployed through, the vendor side, from ATSs, CRMs, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting. Okay, folks, listen, we're coming to the end of our show. So I want to say thank you so much for everyone for joining. Thank you for Lauren Sharp, firstly, for coming on to the show. Great to see you. Adrian Bira, great to see you as well. Hopefully we'll get the chance to meet next time I'm in Australia. Ross Clennett, great to see you as well, sir. And Katie Osborne, thanks for joining. Craig Watson, quick shout out for you. Sorry we couldn't get you back in, mate. But there was a kind of an in and out with you and Lauren on this. I'm sure you're used to that type of exchange in any case. But anyway, great to see everyone here. Good luck to everyone in the election. Good luck to everyone in 2025. Keep on recruiting. Let's see how we go. Let's do this another show of this type when I'm back in Australia next time. Okay, folks, that's about it. Thanks for watching.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Safe travels, Hung.
Thanks. See you, mate.